Going back to week 2 of NFL free agency, Ravens making more moves. So much to talk about on this episode of the Purple Rain podcast. Yes, welcome back. Happy Monday, happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate. And welcome to
Yes.
another edition of the Purple Rain podcast. Thank you for spending your Monday evening, your St. Patrick's Day evening with us. We truly love you and appreciate you. Some Ravens news to talk about, just a little bit, but let us know if you are here. But first and foremost, you can follow us on Instagram at the Purple Rain podcast. You can follow this guy
Hmm.
right here on Instagram or on X as Sutton Def. Me,
Yeah.
X simply AS10. Instagram simply as10.prod, and most importantly, our sponsor, Manscaped. Go in there, use code PRP for 20% off your whole entire order. Stack the card up, use that, and get free international shipping, the best deal on the interweb. Like I
Yeah.
said, we do have some Ravens news to talk about. Kind of controversial. I've seen some people arguing about it, but that's kind of what Ravens fans do. We argue about the most smallest of things, but I'm kind of accustomed to it. But gotta ask you, how was your weekend? Looks like you did some fun stuff. Had the cowboy hat on. I was loving it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So this weekend was a rodeo weekend for me here down in Houston, Texas. I had some friends from back home come down and we kind of powwowed and hung out and had a good time for a couple of days and went to a couple of events, things like that. And, I got to wear my cowboy hat and, all that good stuff. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself this weekend. I texted you over the weekend because some guy at this food vendor at the rodeo, he gave me free food because he was like, hey, like, has anybody ever told you look like Vinicius Jr. from Real Madrid? And I was like, no, nobody's ever told me that. And like he just gave me free food for it. And he was like, can I get a picture? And I was like, sure. And he gave me free food. So I was like, all
Yeah,
right, cool. It was a W. It was a W.
yeah.
Big win. So I looked up Vinicius Jr. after, and I was like, wait, I don't really think I look like this guy, but like I can kind of see some of the comparisons. Like I get it in a way, right? But like um, at the end of the day, I'm just glad I got free food.
Yeah, yeah. Free food is free food, and you don't have braces. That's how I remember him. Vinicius had braces coming onto the scene, so I was like, that
Oh
kind of threw
yeah,
me
yeah,
off
yeah.
guard. Yeah. Like I said, maybe if you shave the beard, but that's like kind of pushing it. But like I said, free food is free food. So on that
Yeah.
day, guess what? You're his twin.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah,
tell you anything.
exactly. I wasn't complaining, nothing like that. I got free food, and it was like $40 worth of food too. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I had a good weekend. And how was yours?
Good, good. Got to see some fellas, got to see some friends, and I'll take it. Very relaxing. And I just take this time without football on weekends to not ruin my weekend for granted sometimes because I can do what I
Mm,
want to do when I want to do, and I can enjoy my Sundays doing whatever I want to, not being
yeah,
stuck to a TV or a computer screen or a phone screen for 8 hours of commercial free football.
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, Alex. Like honestly, the weekends feel so much more free. You feel like so much more freedom on the weekends during the off season because it's just like when football is in season, like Sundays are automatically locked down. Like no, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like you got to be in front of a TV watching a game or at least monitoring a game. If you got something really really important going on a Sunday, then like obviously that's going to take priority over football. But like you're still going to be monitoring what's going on in the football world on Sundays. But like now that there's no football, I feel totally comfortable just doing whatever the hell I want to do, you know? And I know this is something that we experience every single off season, but like it just never gets old, man. Like that kind of like culture shock going from like, okay, not football, Sundays are for football to like just like Sundays are for me, if that makes sense. Like it's a difference. But yeah, man, we are here for episode 302 of PRP. Thank you guys for being here so much. We got 30 people watching live already. Thank y'all so much for joining this episode of the show. Let me go ahead and pull up who's here in the chat. We got my guy, of course, Mod K Dog. You already know Mod K Dog, man, a Purple Rain pioneer. Says, yo, Rain Gang family, what is going on this Monday? What's going on, K Dog? Appreciate you for coming through. As always, man, our biggest supporter. SG says, yo, what's up, Rain Gang? How are we doing? Doing great. Doing great, SG. How are you doing? Let us know. Let us know in the chat. Quoney in the house says Bengals got no defense. Yeah, man. I mean, we got some things to talk about on this episode, man, because like, you know, that big deal happened yesterday with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and obviously they have Joe Burrow under contract as well. So, what are the Bengals going to do anywhere else outside of those three players? I think they take up like damn near half of the salary cap space. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Let me see what else we have here. Of course, Mod K Dog giving a big shout out to the sponsor Manscaped. Code PRP 20% off plus your free international shipping when you use our code. Again, PRP. Use it. Hashtag replay gang. He also gives a shout out to the replay gang as well. What's going on? Let me see. I got my guy Twin 410 here as well. What's going on, Twin? Says ain't caught a live video in a while. Yes, you are
welcome
here.
back.
You are here. Welcome back. Welcome back, brother. All right. And we also got Tanja Bowman in the house. Tanja Bowman coming through per usual. Says good evening, Rain Gang. Tanja is a purple rain pioneer in her own regard. Appreciate her for coming through as always. But listen, I have to ask you, Alex. We got to kick it off with this. You talked about something on the last episode of the show. Mod Roosh in the chat as well. What's going on, Roosh?
Howdy, partner.
You talked about something last week on the show that I found very, very intriguing. You mentioned what the backup quarterback position would look like for this Baltimore Ravens team. And you mentioned maybe even the Ravens trading for a Joe Milton, who is currently residing on the Patriots roster, who I told you I love that guy. I think he's a playmaker, a bona fide, like, you know, if you develop that guy, he can really make some noise in this league. But over the weekend, we got some news that the Ravens went out and they signed Cooper Rush, former quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, right? He was a backup for them, you know, when Dak went down a season or two ago. You know, he stepped in and he made some waves here and there. He made some waves, but, you know, obviously never really panning out into be like, you know, a bona fide starter. So here he is now with the Baltimore Ravens. Alex, I want to get your take. How were you feeling originally when you found out that the Ravens have a new backup quarterback and his name is Cooper Rush?
I was cool with it. You know, we spend a good amount of time talking about the situation. We went through the quarterbacks, you know, the
Yeah.
Joe Flacco's we talked about. You mentioned Cooper Rush, and I kind of think we both glanced over him because it didn't really seem realistic. You know, when you think of a
Yeah.
Cooper Rush, you think of him maybe going behind a quarterback that might not be your quarterback for the future, i.e., a Derek Carr in New Orleans. I feel like that he'd be a guy that if you sign him, wait a second, he could take over his spot. But he came here, and I'm really cool with it for multiple reasons, and it might be like a hot take, but I'll happily get into them right now. All right, number
Yeah.
one, I think Lamar and Jackson can sit out more fourth quarters. I think we have a 14 to 17 point lead with about 10 minutes left. Actually, a three score lead in the fourth quarter. You can put him in there, and you're not going to go three and out like we did with Josh Johnson. You at least can burn some clock with him in that quarterback. I really think that.
So
It
you're saying he can
allows
make a throw on 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 9 to keep us on the
exactly.
field?
I think
Okay.
it can let Lamar just have more time to sit out and take less hits, take less game time. Like I think it's a perfect regard in that sense. And I'm not going to talk about the what if somebody were to go down because we're not going to even put that energy out there. But for preseason as well, I think it can help our receivers out. We had
Yeah.
Devin Leary and Josh Johnson throwing like Tez Walker last year, and it wasn't good in preseason. Our quarterbacks were awful in the preseason, like awful. So now it'll allow you maybe second and third string guys to maybe get some better looks in practice, get some better looks in preseason. How maybe you can trade one of the guys instead of cutting them, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do like it all around. It's what $4 million guaranteed for 2 years. I'm not gonna sit here and go to one winning drive with a pitchfork and a torch, calling for EDC's head. I like it. It's something we haven't had in a very long time. A guy who can come in, when we're up and can chew the clock out and not just go run, 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 three and out defense back on the field.
Yeah. And, when I first found out about this move, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, like, this gives me really like no dopamine at all. I will say that. I will admit that, right? I was gonna call on FaceTime, my bad. This gives me dopamine. I don't feel strongly about this in either direction, right? Positively or negatively. But what I will say is that I think that this gives us a stability that I don't feel like we had with a Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson, obviously, just journeyman, literally just like a body, like a warm body to play quarterback. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to like shit on Josh Johnson, excuse me for my language, but like he was never a guy who where, if your starting quarterback goes down, then you can expect for Josh Johnson to at least put up a fight. No, if Lamar, knock on wood again, if Lamar were to ever, get hurt and Josh Johnson came in, I would have zero faith that the Ravens could do anything, like contending for anything, playoff spot, playoff, success, anything like that. But Cooper Rush gives me a little bit more confidence than I would have in a Josh Johnson. Like you said, I think that Lamar might be able to sit out a couple more fourth quarters, that sort of thing. Just being with Cooper Rush is a guy who I think who can make a throw. He can make a throw on third and long or something like that, and he can keep the offense on the field and really keep the pressure on the opposing team. So I'm not mad at it, especially considering the compensation that we gave him. Like I don't think that it was a bad deal by any stretch of the imagination. Now a lot of fans are really upset that we gave Cooper Rush was $4 or $5 million, but we couldn't go out and give like an Azeez Ojulari, who just got picked up for $4 million for a 1 year deal, with the Eagles, the Super Bowl winning Eagles. So it's just like I don't know. You got to kind of take the good with the bad, the happy with the sad, like. But what are your thoughts on like the compensation and like where we could have gone with that money?
I don't think we're counting pennies right now. I think if we really wanted to go and get Aziz, we would have gotten him for 4 mil. I'm not too sure. One thing kind of just popped in my head. What's going on, Sean? Um, what if, like, once again, what if he has a really, really good preseason? And what if, like I said, a guy like Derek Carr isn't looking good? Hell,
Mm,
what if a guy, possibly goes down with said word? What if another team's quarterback isn't looking good?
yeah,
That's when they can make a call. Well, the Ravens got this guy who's 9-5. We can call him up and see what they want. And we've seen it before. Guys trading for a quarterback as a backup, maybe a guy who can fill in a couple of games,
yeah.
and they make some noise. I mean, you could get a pick out of him, and then how much you're really paying? You're not paying anything. So I get that. I would like Aziz Ojulari, but if we can't scrape up $4 million for Aziz Ojulari, we have bigger problems right now. I feel.
And I agree because like the biggest I would say like the biggest need as of today, right, with this Ravens roster would be an edge rusher. And again, we sound as Ravens fans like very disingenuous talking about like edge help right now because we're just coming off of 2 seasons back to back where we were second in sacks and first in sack, you know. But like I said on many other episodes of the show, like it doesn't seem like a lot of those sacks were very impactful or not as impactful as we feel like they should have been, or they came at more opportune times. So getting a guy like Aziz Ojulari, a young guy who had 6 sacks last season, who still has a lot of football ahead of him and a lot of developing to do. Maybe even under a Dr. Rush, he could have taken that next step. It seems like that was a little bit of a miss, and instead you go out and you sign quarterback Cooper Rush, who obviously we're not banking on this guy to play at all. As a matter of fact, we don't want him to play at all, So paying him, I'm not gonna say paying him anything, but just like the fact that we paid him a salary that we could have paid a salary for a position of need, you know, I understand the frustration there. I understand the frustration there, but like, with this NFL offseason, like I said, you have to take the crooked with the straights, man. Like, you're not going to get every perfect player at the perfect time. Like, it's just how this shit works, man. You're going to lose out on some opportunities. It's just how it is. So honestly, at this point, I'm looking towards the draft for an edge rusher. This even further solidifies my position, my standing that the Ravens need to go after, like a James Pierce Jr., the Tennessee Volunteer, or maybe some other guy at edge, like in the draft at that 27th pick. Whoever's there, whoever is available. I think you gotta take a swing. You gotta take a swing, man, because just like all the other edge rushers, premier edge rushers in our division, really put pressure on the Ravens to have a guy of, similar standing, right? Trey Hendrickson may stay with the Bengals. TJ Watt is with the Steelers, and Myles Garrett just signed that big contract with the Browns. So we have to compete in some way, shape, or form at that position. And, like I said, long story short, I can see why fans are a little bit upset that we paid Cooper Rush this amount of money to really be a backup, to be a contingency plan for Lamar Jackson, to be a guy who we don't want to ever touch the field. So, yeah, we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there. Cooper Rush signs a deal with the Ravens. It is what it is, right? Neither happy nor sad about it, but you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not losing sleep over it. I was just gonna go
No.
through some of the edge rushers that are still available because there are some pretty interesting names out there. A lot of former Ravens. So Matt Judon, Zadarius Smith, Charles Omenihu, Von Miller, Dennis Gardeck, Emmanuel Ogba, Preston Smith, Carl Lawson, Jihad Ward. Real quick, interesting. Posted a picture of him in the all-black Raven uniforms from a couple years ago. Um, Without context, and it's just like Twitter is a really weird place. I'm like, is he coming back? Does he want to come back? That was weird, but I would like to get either Judon or Zadarius back, and then throw me a Jihad Ward as well. I'd like to have two guys come in new, fresh as in bodies we didn't have here last year. Was told, like I
Yeah.
said, one of Judon and Aziz, and unfortunately didn't happen, but got to get one of those guys because I still just don't feel comfortable with what we have. So bringing a vet, bringing a guy in the first round, and let's hopefully get his edge rushers cooking again.
Yeah, and just a quick thought. I would love to see Jihad Ward back on this Ravens team, twisting the crown, doing the celebration. Like it was a good time when he was here. I did see a tweet by our friend of the show, Hoodie Ramey, on Twitter. He said something along the lines of, you know, uh, you as a Ravens fan, not necessarily talking about you, Alex, but like this Ravens fan is talking about how, they don't want Zadarius Smith back in Baltimore after what he did to Baltimore, like kind of promising he would come back, but then not actually coming back. He was like basically saying like, speak for yourself. I would still love to have him in Baltimore, and I'm glad that you said that what you said what you just said just now, because I would too. Honestly, like it would be no hard feelings at all. Come on back. I think that he's still got a lot of good football ahead of him. So if that deal could be made, I would think that the Ravens would want to go ahead and do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, let's not be outrageous. What did C.J. Gardner Johnson say about the Eagles fans when he was in Detroit? Like, come on now.
Mm,
He said they were the worst
mm,
fans in the league. F them. Like,
yeah,
it's not like this is just some made up thing. It was out there live. His own mouth speaking those words came back and won him a Super Bowl. So I'm right there with you. I'd take Z back in a heartbeat. Judon as well. Hell, I'll take both of them, and then let's really good cooking because it's better than what we have. And I know we can come in here and he can produce. So yeah, I'm definitely on the same side as you there. If Z wants to come back, I'm taking Zadarius Smith back as a Raven.
open arms, open arms. But yeah, all right, let's go ahead and move on here. So the next topic that we're gonna go ahead and get into is another AFC North team,
Mm.
right? Who in recent years they've been kind of up and they've been down. They went to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, lost out Super Bowl, to the Rams. The Cincinnati Bengals, right, Alex? They have been. Let me just say this: their moves from their front office, to me at least, have been very, very questionable. Right. So obviously, just recently, as of yesterday, right, re-signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to absolutely just huge contracts, right? I think 160 million for Jamar Chase, 112 or 115 million for T. Higgins, something like that. You could probably confirm it for me. But those are just two huge contracts. And of course, Joe Burrow is also under contract with them as well. They're taking up, those three players alone are taking up damn near 50% of the Cincinnati Bengals cap space. And it makes you wonder, what are they going to do on defense, right? Are we going to see a whole lot more like 50-50 shootouts between the Ravens and the Bengals? Because, we can't stop those two receivers,
Yeah.
But like, what was your reaction, Alex, to this huge deal, this monumental deal Jamar Chase is now the highest paid non-quarterback in National Football League. I think he's got 0.25 million over Myles Garrett, who just got paid a couple of weeks ago. What were your thoughts?
Cool, cool. You can't beat them. You can't beat us with them. And I'll be honest with you, their kryptonite still is number 8. That Jackson guy wearing number 8. It feels like can't stop him.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
With that being said, though, I mean, they played our defense last year when it wasn't good, and that's no excuse, and we still found a way. So I'd be saying that win, lose, or draw. But it is a little worrying considering the receivers we have to play, and it sucks. But this, if you're a team in Ohio, you just don't know how to run. I guess I mean they waited way too long to sign Jamarr. Obviously we're Ravens fans. Um,
Yeah.
the price only went up, and people were saying the same thing about Lamar. And cool, we got ours done. But like you said, defense, and I think of the Madden like superstar KO and like Madden 20 of the Sean McVay team was like the best defense is like double the offense, and like that's how they're playing it as if it's Madden. Defense doesn't matter. We're just gonna stack our offense up, and if we can't stop a leaky faucet, oh well. And I mean, I'm looking at their defense. Who on there is scaring you? You look at the Bengals, like who is the X factor right now? Let's say Trey Hendricks isn't gone. Who is it? Jermaine Pratt
Well, I mean,
requested a trade.
Geno Stone, Cam Taylor Britt. I mean, who? I don't know. I don't
I
know.
mean, I saw Cam Taylor Britt get routed up by Rashad Bateman, biggest play of the game, right in front of my eyes for a game-winning touchdown.
Talk to me.
Like we have now two bona fide receivers in Zay and Bate. Don't care, I didn't even know Bate put up about 750 yards last year as a 2 with 45 targets, 9 touchdowns, then 2 in the postseason. Put up double-digit touchdowns last year, and this guy still won't get a lick of respect. Zay put up 1,000 yards. Oh, sorry there.
Oh, good.
I mean, yeah, so they're still going to be a good team, but they still haven't made the playoffs in the past 2 years. So that's kind of why, like, you still got to have a defensive point, and Burrow was healthy all of it last year. So they'll still be a contender. They'll still be playing us hard as heck, but they're still going to have a couple of bozo losses like they do have every year.
Yeah. And like it's just such a flawed mindset to have as, a front office, as a GM, to just really stack your chips on the offensive side of the ball, knowing damn well you're not going to be able to stop some of these high powered offenses, that exist in the AFC. Listen, man, Patrick Mahomes, I know they have not been explosive. The Chiefs haven't been explosive, but like they can put up points when they need to. I know they just lost the Super Bowl to the Eagles, but like if the Bengals play the Chiefs tomorrow, I think that would be a damn good game. Just because they pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, the Bengals, that is, just because they paid those guys big money does not mean that they're going to blow out the Chiefs. Does not mean that. It doesn't mean that they're going to blow out the Bills. It for damn sure does not mean that they're going to blow out the Ravens. You know what I mean? So it's just like I, I don't understand not shoring up that side of the ball that's going to be able to stop these high-powered offenses that exist in the conference. So it really just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If I'm a Bengals fan right now, I'm pissed off. I'm really pissed off. I saw a tweet earlier today, and let me know if you agree with this or not. It said that if your franchise, quote unquote franchise QB, talking about Joe Burrow here, if he needs 2 perennial all-stars at receiver, getting paid that much, your quarterback might be overrated. That's what they said. That's what they said. And I feel like that was a shot. That was a shot at Joe Burrow, but it was kind of warranted. It was kind of valid. Low key, kind of valid. Yeah, go ahead.
We both view him as a top 5. I know I view him as a top 5 quarterback. Up there, top 4. I'll be honest. Top 5.
Okay.
Top 5 to be safe. Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Hurts. My 5 right there. I'm not gonna. We're not ranking. I'm not ranking him right now. To me, top 5 quarterback. But that's a fantastic point. Obviously, having Gesicki back is good for them. But they got rid of. Let's see, the Chiefs got rid of Tyreek Hill, went and won a Super Bowl. And I think, as much as I hate to say with the Bills, like they're kind of doing it the right way. They have Josh Allen locked up, and it's allowing them to get their line settled. Khalil Shakir is a damn good receiver, but he's not in chase territory, but allows them to build around him, and they'll be set for the future. I just pulled it up. Orlando Brown was ranked 66th in the league out of 87 tackles. 4 years, $64 million.
Man, that's tough.
Ronnie Stanley, 2 years, 40 million, I believe, or 3 years, 60 million, and he was top, top half, playing some of the best ball of his career.
I'm a left tackle though. I'm a left tackle. Just saying. Just saying.
I mean, we still have guys to pay on defense. We have a generational safety in Mr. Hamilton and a top three, top five center, Mr. Linderbaum. But you can have all these guys to throw to, but that same meme, I feel like he's going to come back and haunt Joe Burrow for the rest of his career. Pick number 5, Chase or Sewell. You got Sewell, you can throw it up there. You got Chase. I mean, you got to have a line. You saw Mahomes. He had a damn good line and some Jags at receiver, and won it. I mean, and you bring it up in the Super Bowl. It's the line. What sold Joe Burrow Super Bowl? The line. Aaron Donald came through. Nobody touched
on that
him.
last play. Yeah.
Game over. So good on them. I mean, I'm gonna hate to play Chase and Higgins again because watching them in person it's stressful because they're open literally every single play. You just got to get to the quarterback or hope your defensive backs are that good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and before we get to Chike's 2-piece here in the chat, appreciate you for the donation, Chike. You make a good point, and that's another reason why, like, I think it's all the more important that the Ravens have, like, that bona fide guy off the edge who's going to be able to shut down a Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who is literally the only, and when I say the only, I mean the only threat to this Ravens team when they play. So it's just, I don't know, man. Going back to the Ravens, I like to point back to the Ravens because this is a Ravens-centric podcast. Like, you got to get guys who's going to get the quarterback on the ground so he cannot get the ball to these $30 million receivers. That will, and honestly, when you think about it, like the football philosophy of the Cincinnati Bengals now has to be endlessly throw the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Endlessly. Because that's what you're paying for. That is what you're paying for. For Joe Burrow, your however many $1 million quarterback, to throw to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, your first, second, and third highest paid players on the team. They have to be involved constantly. So if you game plan around shutting those guys down, what are they gonna do? Yep. Like if you're a Bengals fan, if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm low key livid. I'm glad that we're keeping T. Higgins. I'm glad that we have Jamar Chase locked up. He's the best wide receiver in the league. Triple crown last year. Love it. But like, how are we stopping Lamar Jackson? What's the plan to stop and shut down Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes? Hell, I don't know, Justin Herbert. Who is gonna, the Chargers is gonna continue to make strides. Hell, the Broncos, Bo Nix, I expect them to be better next year. Well, how are you going to keep up defensively? That's the question. Chike, what's going on, Chike? Appreciate you for coming through. Says whoever said that about Joe Burrow needs to be examined. He's referring to the comment that I made earlier. I saw a tweet online that said, if you need to pay 2 top-tier wide receivers on your team, your quarterback may be overrated. And that was a tweet that I saw somebody make in the Ravens community. And Chike, you can feel how you feel. And again, we appreciate the 2-piece in the chat here. Because let me say this. I am on record loving me some Joe Burrow. I've always said Joe Burrow, he's an ace. Like he's a dog of a quarterback. But like at the end of the day, there's some validity in that tweet, right? Like if you got to pay 2 of your receivers top tier money, you do realize that even with the salary cap going up, you're not going to be able to pay a lot of other pieces around that roster. Pieces that are very, very important, like premium pieces. Here you are staring down losing Trey Hendrickson. You know what I mean? Because you want to pay 3 players on offense. It's very unbalanced. That's all I'm saying. It's very unbalanced. Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. Chike, I understand that, but in terms of like how the Bengals are setting him up, I don't think that they're setting him up for success.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and think about the Niners right now. They paid Ayuk, they paid Debo, they paid McCaffrey, and now they have to let Hufanga walk, Greenlaw walk. Thankfully, they got Juszczyk back. But if we're like really gonna look at the Niners, like, are they? They're a good team, but they have a lot of holes there. Like Ayuk was coming off of a season-ending I word. Is he gonna be the same when you just gave him $30 million? There's talks about them regretting that already. They didn't go sign Demarcus Robinson. They had to, get Ricky Pearsall first round. Unfortunately, that's kind of happens when you have to pay all these guys. And there are teams that let guys walk at the right time, and they'll have a good career. But that's just the business. I mean, I hate to say you can't keep everybody. There's a salary cap for a reason, and it is real, unfortunately, and it does catch up to teams that like we're seeing. So, but I feel like for me with the whole Bengals stuff, not even trying to be a hater. Like, what's the difference between last year and this year? Those guys were there last year. They didn't make the playoffs. They missed the playoffs. Their players are complaining that the Chiefs lost on purpose. How about you win the games? It's not like
Yeah.
they didn't have these guys last year. They had them. So what's the excuse?
Yeah. And my guy Killer Cam in the chat, what's going on, Killer Cam? Appreciate you for coming through as always. Says if they draft well, that being the Bengals, on defense, they will be the Super Bowl favorites. I think that's a very hot take, a very scorching hot take, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't see anybody that the Bengals bring in. I don't see them making a complete 180 for this team. I just don't. Like you said, they missed the playoffs the past couple of seasons. Um, they start to come on in the second half of the season with their offense, really start to cook, cooking and whatnot. But I don't see it, man. I do not see it. It's a passing game, and what else?
They fired
It's
their
a passing
DC.
game, and what else? Exactly. Like it.
They kind of made their DC the scapegoat. I mean, you know what I mean? That's just there's just a lot of problems. I mean, if the Ravens draft Lyman well, we're Super Bowl favorites. It's a crapshoot, unfortunately.
Right. It is. It is. And but it's just no promises. And it's just like, again, man, you need a defense. You need a defense, especially in that postseason. We saw it this season, this past season, right? Like we were not able to when the going got tough against the some of the best teams in the league, Bills, what would have been the Chiefs in the next round, right? We were not able to get Josh Allen on the ground. We were not able to force those turnovers, things like that. You need dogs on defense. DOD, you need dogs on defense. Just as simple as that. And I feel like outside of a Trey Hendrickson, I don't think that the Bengals really have that. If they draft really well, cool. But how long is it going to take to develop a guy that they draft, right? If he's not coming out in the first season and really, really making waves, really, really making an impact, like to get them to a deep playoff run or a championship, then what are we doing? Because again, you're going to have to pay Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins for years to come unless you offload those contracts via trade. So it's just if your plan is to keep all those guys under contract and pay all of them throughout their contracts, then I guess you're just banking on shootouts. I
Yeah,
really do.
I feel like that's why we see busts so many times because you have guys they'll throw these first rounder, second rounder guys into the fire off the bat, and they get beat a couple of games, and they
Yeah.
never regain that confidence. And I know it frustrates us not seeing Wiggins, playing off rip, but imagine we throw him out in the fire week one against the Chiefs, and Xavier Worthy pops the top off him on a couple of plays. Now his confidence is in the ground. He's getting called a bust by ESPN NFL Network, so that's kind of the position they're left in. And I see we talked about the Rams, but Les Snead and Sean McVay is a lot different than uh, uh what's his face, Mark Newman, I think, or Newpin is their GM, and
Mm,
Zach Taylor. They're miles apart. So we'll
yeah.
we'll see there, but I'll stay on the Ravens. I think they're gonna win the division again, 13-4, 14-3. I think we'll be a better team.
I can agree there. I can agree there. Um, okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the
I have
next
one
topic
question though:
here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
who's stopping Derrick Henry on that defense? Because if we
Oh
control the
no,
possession and the run, it's it's just
that's what I'm saying, bro. Like I don't know unless you're banking on a shootout, unless you're banking on the fact that historically speaking, the Ravens and obviously for the rest of the league as well, they have not proven to be able to consistently shut down a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins.
yeah, yeah.
Those guys have been able to get theirs, on numerous different occasions. So if you're banking on that, and that's all really, the opposing team, if you're the Bengals, has to worry about, don't see it being conducive to, making a deep playoff run. I just don't. I just don't. You know, you're and to our point earlier, to Killer Cam's point, saying if they draft and they'll be contenders for the Super Bowl. I don't think that it's a good idea to put that amount of pressure on rookies, rookie defensive players, right? You're thrust into the league, right? And you're basically telling these guys, like these young guys coming to the league, like, hey, look, like we're relying on you, X linebacker out of X school, or X edge rusher out of X school, or X, you know, whatever out of X school. We're relying on you to take care of Lamar Jackson. We're relying on you to stop Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. On offense, we got it covered. But we need you, you know, some 19, 20-year-old kid out of whatever school to really shut down
Bowling
these
Green.
perennial all-stars. Exactly. So it's just like I I don't know, man. I don't know what the Bengals really what their identity is going to be going into the season, but let's go ahead and switch topics here.
Yeah, real
I
quick.
wanted to talk. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this before we get too far into this. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up soon. Mark Andrews.
Hmm.
Mark Andrews. He recently, as of I think today, actually, the Ravens picked up his $4 million option. Right. So basically saying that like it's looking like he's going to stay in Baltimore. As of a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, what Eric DeCosta said at the press conference, it sounded like a farewell to Mark Andrews. Like, is he going to be on the roster next year? We'll see." But today we learned that the Ravens picked up his option. They're paying him an extra $4 million guaranteed. So it's looking like he's going to stay. Now, I kind of saw this coming all along because the Ravens aren't really the type of franchise, the type of organization to really just let a guy go based off of like knee jerk reactions and feelings. And like a lot of how the Ravens fan base is feeling right now about Mark Andrews is really a knee jerk reaction to what happened in the playoffs, right? Of course, the drop in Bills territory in the fourth quarter, and then the drop to tie the game on the 2-point conversion in that game as well. Those two things right there really, really like put a bad taste in a lot of Ravens fans' mouths, and it's just and rightfully so. Like I understand it because same thing for me. Um, but for the Ravens front office, they can't look at it that way. They can't look at it with that level of emotion. I feel like they have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what has this guy done for us? Over the course of his tenure here with the Ravens. Hell, what did he do this past season? He had 11 touchdowns, right? A
Mm.
career high, 11 touchdowns. So it's just like I think that the $11 million that I think he's owed this year. Um, I think the Ravens think it's worth it. I think they think it's worth it, man. And I want to get your reaction. What is your
Yeah.
reaction to the Ravens picking up the option on Mark Andrews? Do you think he stays? Do you think he still might be traded? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I sat back and I did think a team without Andrews on it would suck. It would definitely suck. But for the money, and maybe getting a pick, I would be for the moving it off of, and then thinking about now like if somebody's gonna give us a fifth or a sixth round pick, it's like yeah, you're out offloading the money. Um, and at the same time, who's going to replace those 11 touchdowns? Obviously, we have
Mm,
we have a ton of faith in Likely. We talked about drafting a tight end,
yeah,
and then I kind of just think back. It's like it's the playoffs. It's who shows up in the playoffs. And one knock on Hollywood obviously was the drops, but when the playoffs came, he balled.
he showed
He
up.
was kind of
Yeah,
the op. He would show out, and with Andrews, unfortunately, doesn't have a touchdown in the playoffs, and we can't go through that again. We can't have another bad play. I do think he'll stay, and I hope he can make up for that. But it just feels like too little, too late at this point. And if we were to trade him, like I said, it'd be day three. It's not going to be a second or third round pick. We're talking probably fifth, sixth, or seventh round. That's what I've been reading and have heard online. Yeah.
which basically means the Ravens are in a very tough spot when it comes to Mark Andrews because Mark Andrews is one of those guys where like it's not like he had underperformed during the regular season, you know. And when I say during the regular season, I mean like during a time where the world wasn't watching, you know. He underperformed in a time where the entire world was watching. And he, for lack of better words, and excuse my language again, he shit the bed. in that big moment, you know. And we can talk about how Lamar performed in that last playoff game, whatever. But when in the playoffs, you're known to average 34 receiving yards a game and no touchdowns in 9 years of playing, that is not good. And especially after we saw what we saw this past season against the Bills in the divisional round, teams are going to lowball the Ravens when it comes to a trade offer for Mark Andrews. Absolutely. You're talking about a 30-year-old tight end who is on an expiring contract. It's going to be very, very tough for the Ravens to have any sort of leverage, 11 touchdowns or not, you know, to get him off for a second round or a third round pick. I think a third round would be fair. I think a third rounder would be fair, considering I think, like the success rate of third round picks and what Mark Andrews has been able to do, what he's proven, especially in the regular season, there would have to be a team out there, right, that would be able to justify going out and kind of trading for him and giving up some compensation, whatever. But I don't know, man. I just think it kind of shows that the Ravens are in a tough spot when it comes to Mark Andrews. I think, like, out of respect, they'll probably end up letting him play out the last year on his contract and seeing what happens after that. Now, before we get out of here, Killer Cam says here, and I like this point. It's a very interesting point. He says, yeah, you guys are going crazy in the chat. Let me see. Real crazy in the chat. Oh, he says he was pressing during the Buffalo Bills game, and in future playoff games he will press more and make more mistakes. It's really a mental thing when it comes down to Mark Andrews at this point, because like he's going to be fine during the regular season. He's going to be just fine. I fully expect that, but like in the playoffs, when he knows he does not necessarily shine the brightest, is he going to be able to show up mentally for those playoff games? That's kind of like the question. Not for any of us, not for any sports analyst or us here on this podcast. It's for Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews himself. Like, he's got to ask himself that question. Like, hey, like, am I going to be able to like get over these demons, these playoff demons?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the next playoff game that the Ravens have, if Mark Andrews is involved with the Ravens still, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get him going early and often. Like get him a red zone target or two in the first half, something like that, just to make sure that he can kind of get over that hump of, okay, I now have a touchdown in the postseason. I can kind of get that monkey off of my shoulders, off my back, whatever you want to call it, and I can move forward from that. But right now, no touchdowns in the postseason in 9 seasons is crazy. It's crazy, and that's got to be tough on the mental. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. You're right. We don't hold we hold no leverage. I'll tell you this right now. We hold absolutely no leverage with Mark Andrews, because we can ask him to take a pay cut. He can say no, cut me, because you're just losing money. And I can go, you don't get a pick. We can try to trade him, and like, oh well, he's coming off of, he was hurt last year because of the car accident, coming off of the season-ending award in 2023.
Yeah, so
There's
we gave
that.
him grace. Yeah,
Exactly. There's that. Well, if we give you a third or a fourth round pick, we have to eat this 11 million. Do we want to do that? Not really. So you can take the 6th or 7th round pick and be happy that you're getting, that we're eating this money. Like I said, we don't hold any leverage whatsoever, and I think he is going to stay. And I kind of am on the side. It's another weapon, but I would like this, to utilize likely more as well. But both of them together, I thought Andrew looked better blocking wise at a point, and he had 11 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns, and he was non-existent the first 3, 4, 5 weeks. So much like
yeah.
the Ravens team has been known, we're regular season champions and postseason just floppers. He's kind of a part of that, so we need that to turn around, and I think he'll stay, and I hope he can stay. And who knows what happens, but I think he will stay. He'll have probably over 7 touchdowns again. He'll be a big point of this offense, but I think we will see likely have maybe the same or around that area of 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and it just sucks. Like, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, because like Isaiah Likely, he's that younger kid who just he's performed, he's stepped up on some big stages. Like it was so the duality of seeing Jeff Zrebiec during that divisional game tweet out that Isaiah Likely catches that touchdown pass, right? And then 2 minutes later, him tweeting out that, oh, Mark Andrews dropped the 2-point conversion. 2 of our tight ends. on back to back plays. One makes the play, the other one does not make the play. And here we are talking about the one who did not make the play and who has consistently not made the plays in the playoffs. Like, should we keep him? Can we really justify bringing him back in and paying him 11, 12, 13 million dollars, however many million dollars this year, or even re-signing him? We can't, and I think that Mark Andrews, he's at a time now where like he's got to have a regular season for the ages this upcoming year, for the ages. Like he's got to literally, I don't want to say turn the clocks back because he just had 11 touchdowns last season, but like he's got to match that. He's got to match
Yeah.
that, in order to kind of like keep some of his leverage when it comes to like, excuse me, negotiating contracts and things like that. So yeah, we will see where this
Yeah,
goes with Mark
I
Andrews.
don't
But go
I
ahead,
don't
go ahead,
like
go
the
ahead.
attacking of Andrews. I mean, like I'm on. As I see saying, Zay was more mature than him. Let's say he catches it. It's tied up. Like to this day, I don't think we win the Super Bowl. I said that the day after. I think the Eagles would have beat us. I think it would have been a closer game if we make it. But I mean, we could have DeAndre Hopkins now, which opens up the offense even more. So if you
See,
bring
I
it,
disagree though. I think that the Ravens win that Super Bowl against the Eagles. If
I
we were there, I, Patrick Mahomes is not Lamar Jackson. Respectfully, I think that Lamar Jackson is able to get out of some of those more muddier pockets and make something happen on a lot of those different plays and really make that game a lot more competitive than it was. I truly do believe that. And Alex, you bring up a good point. Like I don't necessarily like people coming after Mark Andrews' maturity and things like that as well after what happened after the divisional round. But they make good points though. I mean, Zay Flowers went out there in his after his rookie season. He ended his rookie season by fumbling on the goal line in the AFC Championship game, a game that Mark Andrews previously had never been to before. And Zay Flowers in his rookie season went there and fumbled the ball on the goal line. He went out there and he talked to the media afterwards. I understand everybody deals with things differently. I do. But like as a leader of this team, you gotta get out there and you gotta say something. You gotta do something. It's just like I feel like that's so important, is it not?
then you take the captain patch off. I mean, that's not a captain mind.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, everybody deals with it different, but to be fair, I mean, Zay his fumble was in the start of the fourth quarter, the first play compared to the final play of the game. I mean, that's kind of comparing apples oranges. They both kind of cost the game, but it's just kind of tired. We have to keep on talking about this over. It's every single year. Like when is it gonna end? Unfortunately, it's like the Cowboy fans. Is next year our year? It feels like it, but then yeah, something ends up happening. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough conversation. It's a touchy subject when it comes to Mark Andrews because I know half the fan base feels one way, the other half feels another way, and at the end of the day, we all love Mark Andrews and what he's done for, this team and the city of Baltimore, but honestly, also what he fights for as well. We all know what Mark Andrews goes through behind the scenes and things like that, and that's another battle within itself. But when it comes to like the business side of things, like it's kind of tough justifying not trading him and not getting some sort of compensation. Like I said, just again, business wise, take feelings out of it, take the past out of it. Like if you got an up and coming star in Isaiah Likely, right, who has proven time and time again, he has no problem making a big play. No problem. The very first game of the Ravens season made big plays against the Chiefs. The very last game of the Ravens season in 2024, 2025, made big plays. Made a big play against the Bills, made that touchdown. So it's just like it's tough, but like, damn, I'm glad I don't have Eric DeCosta's job. I'll say that.
and I'll say this: Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews. You got it. You're going down the field. You got those five guys, five wide, or you can have a fourth receiver, Tylen Wallace, or somebody drafter, or you have Kolar and Likely. Kolar is to me a Nick Boyle type of player. The speed obviously isn't there, but if we're gonna run it with those five guys, you kind of gotta run it with everybody, and that's kind of what the Eagles did this past year. Had a bunch of guys on 1 year or expiring contracts. They had to win it this year. Look who they've lost. They lost
Yeah.
edge rushers, safety, um, guys all around. Becton getting guys on 1 year deals. So let's kind of hope it's the same thing with us, and we go out on top. And then unfortunately, those guys can walk away with their heads held high. That's kind of what I feel like
Yeah.
they're banking on at this point. One last run with all these guys and see what we can do.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly that is what it feels like. One last run, like one final hoorah, if you will, for this current Ravens roster before, if the Ravens don't win it next season, they're gonna have to blow some things up. Like it's gonna
Hmm.
be very uncomfortable. There's gonna be some moving parts, which is why this year would have been probably one of the best years to go ahead and get it done. And last year included as well. But yeah, man, you make a good point. Those are good
I mean,
points. Those are good points.
who
Yeah.
knows? We lost how many starters on defense, and then somehow started off horrible on defense, then turned around and was number one defense. It's I don't understand. I mean,
It's
the
a
team
crapshoot. Yeah.
as much as the team frustrates me, I do have to respect what they can do, and I wish we would be a little bit more aggressive at times. But I can't lie that we are competitive. I just do want to see us take the next step further, and that's kind of where
Yeah.
I'm at, and that's kind of more a mentality thing than a personnel thing. I feel like we have the
Yeah.
personnel. I feel it's just mentality and just strategic and coaching sometimes.
Yeah. Kyle Hamilton made a great point. We don't need anybody else. Like, it's literally mentality, coaching, strategy. Like at this point, like we have the personnel. I have no problem with the Ravens personnel. I mean, we sat on here on a stream with the likes of Engraven and Hoodie Ramey and Samuel Njoku and Kevin Ostreicher and more, right? And we talked about before that Bills divisional game how good this Ravens roster was, and they still went out there and dropped the ball against a much lesser roster in the Bills, and it was just
Without Zay
baffling.
Flowers,
Without
that
Zay
was
Flowers,
without
yeah,
our receiver one.
yeah, it was baffling to say the least, but. Yeah, I mean, the Mark Andrews discussion will go on, I'm sure, for the rest of the off season. It's still not trading Mark Andrews is still not kind of like out of the woods, right? It's still
Yeah,
possible that
yeah.
could happen. So
Draft.
we'll continue to monitor that. Of course, draft was a big thing. We literally sat here on a live draft and watched Marquise Hollywood Brown get traded in real time. Me and Alex here. You can actually go back to that episode from a few years ago and watch. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Crazy
we'll
how it
see
worked
what
out.
happens. Yeah, I know,
I
right?
was
I know,
wrong.
right?
I'll eat that. I was very wrong. I mean, it worked out in our favor.
We were both upset about it.
Yeah, we were.
But like,
But
in
you got to
hindsight,
take. That's
yeah,
kind of taking the feelings out of things, and also not knowing you requested that trade, and now we have a damn good center, and he's on the Chiefs. Life works
yeah,
mysterious ways.
very mysterious ways, very mysterious ways. Um, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and leave it there for this episode 302 of PRP. Thank you guys so much for coming through. We still got over 70 people watching live right now. Thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube as well if you are listening there. If you're watching on X, if you're watching on Instagram, first of all, just hello, shout out to you. Appreciate you for coming through as well. My name is Sutton Def. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Sutton Def. You can find this guy over here on Twitter at SimplyAS10 and on Instagram at SimplyAS10.prod. You can find us on Instagram at the Purple Rain Podcast. And then again, our sponsor, Manscaped. Go on Manscaped, stack your cart high to the sky. I got to get me some new stuff from there soon too.
I mean,
Use our code PRP. My guy Alex over here looking fresh, looking
it
clean.
came off this weekend. That was
There you
about
go.
3.5 weeks or a month of a beard, and I tell you what, it came off like a freaking like butter on a hot day with a
Butter.
burning knife. Just
like
go,
butter.
and it all came off. No patches, no nothing.
It's
Nothing.
too easy. It's too
Wait.
easy, man.
Come on, man.
way
It's too easy.
Come on, man. It's too easy. Man, manscaped.com. Use our code PRP. 20% off plus the free international shipping. Again, my name is Sutton Def. That is simply as 10. And with that being said, I'm going to let my guy Alex take us out.
Thank you for coming through to another lovely edition of the Purple Rain Podcast, episode 302. In the off season, more moves to
Yeah.
come, draft to come, all the fun stuff. And we don't have to stress about games on Sunday. We don't have to yell about this guy got burnt. We don't have to yell about Brandon Stevens getting burnt anymore. I'm kind of grateful for that. So thank you all for coming through. That's episode 302 of the Purple Rain Podcast. We love you. We appreciate you. As always, stay positive, test negative.
Yes, yes, yes. And never, ever, ever forget, even on the rainiest of days, to call God. It's been episode 302 of PRP. We're going to catch you guys in the next one. Peace.